Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm Phil Bakke. I'm joined tonight by Mika Burrell. Mika, how are we doing after a lovely Saturday night?
Amazing. I mean, there's really no reason to complain about anything that we saw for the most part on Saturday night. A big derby victory for El Paso Locomotive. The second one of the season already, so I'll take it. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But yeah, lots to sink our teeth into.
Yeah, tons to talk about. This episode will primarily focus on obviously the derby win on Saturday night from Locomotive over New Mexico United. Locomotive effectively silencing the noise in more ways than one, unfortunately.
If you
And
know, you know.
yeah. And then we will talk about the we'll look ahead to Wednesday and the Open Cup against Austin FC, so a big game looming on the horizon. And we'll talk about some of the stuff around that. I mean, significant about that before we dive into the derby, the one thing that I did see just in like general news stuff, Mika, is that CBS, who is going to be broadcasting the Open Cup like from this round on, essentially. So for anyone who's been watching on YouTube, it's going to be on, I believe, CBS Sports and like CBS Sports Golazo, which are both free, like available free either over the web or on Paramount Plus, if you want to view it through the app. But it was announced today that Golazo is going to show a whip around show on Wednesday night for all of the Open Cup games that are going on. So like a studio
Nice.
whip around show, which I think the Open Cup's been crying out for something like that from a broadcaster. So credit to CBS for taking the competition seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really good. Because it can be difficult to get your mind around all the different games that are going on at once, and obviously we'll be, eyes post on our
Yeah.
game, but yeah, that's really cool.
Right. For any neutrals, it would be certainly fun. And in previous years, I'd have been locked into a show like that.
Yeah.
But we find ourselves in rarefied air now with Locomotive into the round of 32 and up against MLS opposition. So we'll talk about that more in a little bit, and maybe the fact that Locomotive have an opportunity. But first and foremost, the derby on Saturday. I mean, no use sort of beating around the bush, Mika. This is the best derby performance we've ever seen, and maybe something approaching. I mean, you hate to say a perfect performance because there's always room for improvement, and maybe the improvement was strictly in finishing. The actual performance and the way it played out, sort of between both areas, felt more or less flawless from Locomotive on Saturday night.
Yeah, you're right. You probably could never say a performance was perfect, and I don't think Wilmer Cabrera will ever use that word, lest he give his dressing room any ideas about his expectations. But I do think you could say it was the most complete performance we've seen from El Paso Locomotive this season. I think we've seen stretches in games where we've looked really good and maybe not put the entire thing together over 90 plus minutes. In this game, I think we did do absolutely that. I think we gave a full account of ourselves. And what a fixture to do it in. I mean, fourth Derby del Camino Real if you count preseason. So these teams have really gotten to know each other very well this season. A lot of new faces on both sides, new coaches on the touchline, obviously with Dennis Sanchez in the technical area for New Mexico United, trying to get his ideas across. And, we've been falling behind, I guess you could say, in this fixture. They've got, 3 or 4 more wins than us. Lots of draws, to be fair. And I think sometimes the records don't show like playoff performances and what have you. And then of course we did do the business against them in the US Open Cup, which, like you said, rarefied air. So things are trending in a good direction as far as the Derby is concerned, and this performance was outstanding, to be honest. And yeah, there's so many good performances. And I think what's really funny is that I was just thinking about like just like my overall impression of this game, and obviously the Andy Cabrera hat trick is what's going to, get the headlines, you get a lot of the attention, and of course the club is hyping up, how much history was made with that, being the first hat trick in club history. But it's just interesting to me that a player can do that, and yet this was really a team performance, despite one player scoring all the goals. I mean, there's so many individuals that we can call out besides the younger Cabrera. So, yeah, just a great, great performance, and excited really to dig into this one.
Yeah, it's rare that we have a performance that stands out this much, I think, in terms of particularly in the context of the derby. There have been a lot of really intense games between these sides, and there have been a lot of very good matches. But in terms of tipping the scales, this was by far like the best job that a Locomotive team has done of unsettling New Mexico ever. And New Mexico is not limping into this fixture. I mean, obviously, we've got 2 recent wins over them, but the one obviously coming on penalties in the Open Cup, and then this one now, and requiring sort of the late Andy Cabrera goal to even force penalties. It was quite a close run thing. This is not a New Mexico team that's limping in. They were top of the West coming into this, or close to. They'd won 5 and lost 1, I think was their record coming in. And they had allowed 2 league goals. So defensively extremely, extremely stout. Like, they obviously, we joked about them being a bit of terrorists or whatever, but Locomotive created 21 shots, which is and it wasn't just them having pops from distance. Like, this game, honestly, 3-0 flatters United.
Yeah.
It should have been like, it could have been like 5 or 6, and even inside, it probably should have been 3-0 inside the first maybe 15-20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think 3-0 would have been the scoreline you'd expect after 45 minutes, right? And then we would have tacked on some of the others. And even again, Andy Cabrera, we'll obviously get onto him, but he himself alone could have had at least one more with that free kick that went just wide. But yeah, I mean, it was just a great performance. I think what we can't ignore as we get into this is just how bad New Mexico United were. I think that was also a bit shocking, to be honest. I've never seen them play this poorly in a derby, a league derby at least, and that was yikes. That was a big yikes for me, dog. So I mean, obviously I love it, but it's just interesting that they didn't seem arsed, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit strange. And I mean, I guess before we dive into the performance, it's probably worth addressing the fact that Locomotive did have some issues of their own, luckily not on the field, but in the production of the broadcast. So the first half aired silently, like no sound whatsoever on the stream. Duke was able to get up and running for the second half, luckily. That being said, this is one of those things I think Duke has even addressed online, like the fact that they're looking forward to doing better and all of that, because this was obviously fell quite a bit short of what you'd expect. But these are the sorts of things that can sometimes draw or make the criticisms of USL, or maybe make it seem a little less professional, particularly for a league system that's now targeting, pro rel and first division status and all these sorts of things. Like, these are the sorts of things that just have to, like, you don't really get a lot of shots at this. And luckily it didn't happen on, CBS or with like hundreds of thousands of people watching or something like that. But it is the sort of thing that we need to focus on, because presentation ultimately matters. Like if this happened to an MLS team on Apple TV or whatever, like we'd all be laughing endlessly. It would be a meme, and I think like
I think we'd call
obviously a
it tin
lot.
pot.
Yeah. And obviously a lot of hard work goes into making this happen. And I'm not, detracting from the fact that I think like, obviously it was exceptional. There was probably something that, went on behind the scenes that I'm not privy to. And the sort of margin for error with this is essentially zero, in a league where you're expecting to be taken seriously at like a professional level.
Yeah, no, it's obviously not ideal. I think we can pretty much definitively say there's been some turnover in the club as far as the production department is concerned, if you will. So there have been some moving pieces there, and perhaps people are trying to get to grips with their roles, and shit happens, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. Obviously, this can't happen again or with any kind of frequency because that's just simply not good enough, right? And unfortunately, for it to happen in a game like this is really unfortunate because this is a marquee fixture for our club, but for the league, right? And so USL Championship's not going to be looking at this favorably at all. I would not be surprised if there's some kind of fine for the club. I know the league fines for other types of like media
Yeah.
failures and things of the communications aspect of it. So I would, it would be strange if this didn't have some kind of um small, you know, punishment of some sort. I mean, it's nothing to like lose our shit over, but I mean,
No, of course.
it is unfortunate, and they just honestly they just have to do better because the players, the club, the fans, they all deserve better. And you've got Locomotive fans in literally like Hawaii and people in like Germany and stuff watching these
Yeah.
games, right? And so got to be able to hear it, guys. So yeah, that's just the one, I guess, glitch on the night.
Yeah, really the only thing. But on the field, Locomotive with a bit of a switch up in terms of shape. We've seen them sort of morph into this back four more recently. Um, and with Quezada and Ruiz in the fullback spots, I thought it was interesting the selection there because maybe it suggests who Wilmer feels comfortable playing out wide in a back five or a back three, however you want to classify it, like wing backs versus fullbacks. But he also then deployed Gabby Torres in midfield alongside Robert Coronado and Frank DeRoma, which we've seen Gabby take up these sort of midfield positions uh, frequently when playing wingback, but deployed there from the start. And then the front three was maybe more predictable, but Beto Avila as a quasi number 9 with Wilmer Cabrera and Amando Moreno like running off of him. Uh, the the change here just seemed to work a treat again, like because from the very get go, they seem to have, especially maybe the 3 in midfield against what seemed ostensibly to be a 2 in midfield for New Mexico United of Zico Bailey and I get
Akale, I think, was in
Akale,
there. Yeah.
where he was kind of playing in a 10.
Hmm.
Zico Bailey was playing almost as a forward. I don't know, it was a very like maybe odd formation, but with only a couple of people in those midfield areas, um, Locomotive just seemed to totally choke out any attempt at playing through the center and really just getting out in general for United.
Yeah, I think what we can now kind of observe at this point in the season is that places are up for grabs every single week, and really the only players that are holding their place week in week out are the ones that are scoring goals, and I suppose that's fair enough from Wilmer Cabrera and his coaching staff's perspective. So it is interesting that we are seeing kind of different permutations, and to be fair, a lot some of it is enforced in part by the fact that we've had a lot of fixtures. We're fighting on 3 fronts, which we've never in our club's history done before that I can recall. So, the league and two cups, and we are on what I think we can call a cup run with US Open Cup, which we'll get onto. But yeah, as far as the actual starting 11 on the night, I had no issues with it. Obviously, Wait and goal. Uh, Tumasi, who I think has been great every time that he's had a chance to be on the field. And then Wahab Akwe for a little bit of continuity. Obviously, with Palermo Ortiz on the bench, I think he had a issue with his ribs, so like an upper abdominal injury. And so he wasn't risked to start this one, even though he did come back against Texoma. So, yeah, and then Gabby Torres. I mean, what a privilege to have a player like that, a kind of Swiss Army knife, if you will, who will just play wherever and contribute and make a difference. I think he gets an assist on the night, and I thought he was just excellent. I mean, just technically, he's so solid and he's very smart. I mean, I feel like he's never really making the wrong decision. Sometimes he does things that are, I think, pretty like understated in terms of just like keeping the play moving, but then he'll pop up and be the difference as well. So yeah, he had another fantastic night. Midfield, I for me is where, and I think you kind of hinted to it. I think this is where the game was won and lost on New Mexico United's side. Coronado and DeRoma, they could not live with them, and Frank DeRoma in particular. I mean, the way that I mean, there's a point in the second half where he he's almost going to ground trying to keep the ball. He does end up sweeping the ball away from like three New Mexico United defenders, and all Duke can say on the call is "Goodness gracious," because it's just like all night he was just folks were chasing shadows out there. New Mexico United was trying to press him, just wasn't working. He's just far too fleet of foot. He also gets an assist, and I think that's something that we talked about last time. Is we want to see him be more of the protagonist in the attacking third. We know he can recycle possession and get out of tight areas, but to actually create is another. I think there's another gear in his game where he can do that, and he did do that against New Mexico United. So just I think midfield for us is where we shown. And that's an Eric Calvillo-less midfield, right? Because our captain starts on the bench. So, and then of course the usual suspects up front, like you said, Andy Cabrera, who's been very, very productive and obviously the most productive he's ever been in his professional career on this night. Amando Moreno, I thought, despite not getting amongst the goal involvements, was just tearing them apart. And they had two, three guys on him at any given time. And I think despite all that pressure that he was under, he was still an outlet for us. And he was still threatening and unbalancing them. And really, I think he gets an assist, so fair play to him. But I think the game kind of passed Beto Avila by a little bit, and that's not to put the player down because I think he's been great so far this season. But if there's anyone that I kind of was like, didn't show that level that the others did, then it might be him. But overall, just fantastic selection it ended up being from Wilmer Cabrera, and ultimately a great performance from all of these guys.
Yeah, it was interesting seeing from a couple of different sources. I think Wilmer was one, and then I think John at USL Tactics was the other one who talked about Beto being very like workman like performance, if you will, like doing a lot of tracking back, doing a lot, which like I think that is the one thing that you're never going to be confused about, is that Beto Avila definitely puts in the yards and like is going to keep running. I think in this particular game, there were definitely a couple of moments that I'm sure he's frustrated with as well, in terms of just like finishing and sort of the final ball and all that sort of stuff. But obviously makes a good decision on Cabrera's second to cut the ball back. But yeah, otherwise was maybe not as sharp as the guys either side of him, which maybe made it stick out a little bit more. Moreno probably deserved. I want to say there were a couple. He could have probably had two or three assists like quite early in the game when he was maybe the similar balls to what eventually got Gabby the assist on Cabrera's first, but really putting it into the danger area or those cutbacks from that left hand side. One thing you called out was obviously like the midfield, and during the game we were talking about how and apologies in advance to any Red Devil fans listening, but we were talking a bit about the fact that New Mexico United's press against Locomotive looked a lot like Manchester United's press when it's not functioning. Um, what made New Mexico United's like press look so poor? Was it just simply the quality of Locomotive, or was there something else going on there?
Well, to me, it just felt uncoordinated. I don't know who was meant to start the press, or who was meant to lead the press, what the trigger was. I couldn't figure out what the pattern was. I'm sure there is one. I mean, this is a professional football team. Dennis Sanchez is a good coach. They have been shutting folks out on a weekly basis. Coming into this game, what, four clean sheets in the league, and then another one in the Jägermeister Cup. So I mean, they have been putting pressure on folks and not allowing them to get near their penalty area. But on this particular evening, I just could not understand what they were going for. It would be like one person pressing by themselves and then leaving this massive gap because no one came to kind of like fill in behind, you know? But then they also weren't really like going man to man either. So I just don't know. It was a very strange performance for New Mexico United. And I think if I were a New Mexico United fan from a fan's perspective and certainly from a coach's perspective, I think what's most disappointing about this for them is you can make mistakes, you can concede goals, you can have shots, you can have most of the ball actually, which they did do. But I think and then not score. But I think what's really unforgivable is being outworked. And that seemed to me the case. I think we were first to every 50-50. They turned the ball over way too easily in midfield under pretty minimal pressure. I mean, Coronado and Jerome, bless them, they're not physical specimens, right? That's not
Yeah.
their game. They are both technicians. But it was easy for them to just nick the ball away and then launch attacks for us. So this was the worst I've ever seen New Mexico United play in this fixture, bar none. And I asked Wilmer Cabrera about it. Like, what have you seen? You've played this team 4 times this season already, if we count preseason. What have you seen that you could exploit so ruthlessly tonight? And those were the words I used because I thought it was ruthless. Honestly, it could have been worse. And he said, and Andy both said in not so many words, well, our speed. Maybe they're a bit older, and they were diplomatic about it, right? But yeah, I mean, you look at Kalen Wright, and he gets done for the hat trick goal. Talon Maples, he's not old or anything, but I mean, having to come, cover maybe for Kalen Wright is a lot. He gets carded. We'll see
Could have
more.
gone. Could have gone too, because he that free kick that Andy almost scores from. He's like fully behind, and he just kind of cynically pushes Andy over.
That's right.
So yeah, he actually could have gone for a second yellow.
Yeah, and then Will Seymour, who's no spring chicken, he's hauled off after about 75 minutes or so. Getting torched by Gabby Torres and Amando Moreno consistently. And so that was the part for me that like New Mexico United were just letting themselves get outworked. At the same time, maybe the mitigation is that maybe their best players were not on the pitch. I mean, Greg Hurst is coming back from an injury. Supposedly, he was unavailable against us in the U.S. Open Cup due to some kind of issue. Only good enough for the bench on the night. I'm sure if they had it their way, he would have started. And you pointed out that Jabang also had some kind of an issue going on and could not start. And then by the time that they reacted, I mean, they bring Daniel Bruce on to start the second half, and the first contribution he makes is to get himself in the book. So it's like he can't even do his normal demonic sorcery against us to turn the tide in New Mexico United's favor. So, yeah, they were just outworked, outplayed, and I really do think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, us being dominant and them being uncharacteristically poor.
Yeah. No, I think that's completely fair. I mean, the first goal is actually it sort of illustrates why Locomotive had so little of the ball, but so many shots, in that United give the ball away. I think it's Coronado who wins it back initially and plays like a ball off to the left hand side, or maybe it's actually Moreno who plays the initial ball out to Gabby Torres, but ball gets played to Gabby Torres like out on the left, and he's just in enough space where it's like United have the ball, they try to play out, they get hemmed in, they get caught. And so Locomotive's attack is like 2 passes to create the ability to create a chance. And obviously the ball from Torres is quality, but everybody's already forward, so there's really like nothing that needs to be done from a Locomotive perspective in terms of building this up. It's just put it into a good area, and Andy Cabrera scoring with his head, which I think like a bit of a collector's item in that he's not the biggest the biggest lad out there,
Right.
but a quality header. It's a floated ball, so he has to kind of play it down into the ground to give it the chance to get past Sambakis. But that kind of felt like the pattern of the night, is that Locomotive kept winning the ball. They didn't need a ton of the ball because it was like the second they got possession, they were 30 yards from goal. So it was just immediate. They sort of could immediately create a chance, which is why it felt like such an onslaught. I think despite New Mexico having so much of the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, same thing with the second one. I think they are trying to build up, very sloppy in the middle of the park. Gabby Torres is able to nick it away, and we're off to the races. It's what, 4-on-5, so they do have the spare man, but they were. That's the other thing about New Mexico United on the evening, was they were just jogging. Like there
Yeah.
just wasn't any intensity to the way that they played at all. And when you look at the stats, you would think like, how's that possible, right? Like they had most of the ball. You would think that they were really controlling proceedings, but just no intensity. And if I'm a
Yeah.
fan who came down from Albuquerque to watch that, I'd be so pissed off because there is just no reason. I mean, Christian
Yeah.
brought it up in our group chat. I mean, they've been at home for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and this is a team that made being road warriors like their whole personality,
Yeah.
4 seasons
Sure.
ago or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So it was so poor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
The
and you made the other comment too, like they haven't even really kicked us. Like what's happening?
Yeah, it was weird. I thought at 2-0 it was going to start to get a little bit nasty. Because I figured that they thought either because in any of these games, like there have been a handful of times where Locomotive has been a more talented squad than New Mexico. Like that certainly has existed. And New Mexico has often been very adept at dragging Locomotive into this sort of like street fight of we're going to play a game where we kick you all over the place, we get you riled up, we get you into an emotional game rather than a technical one, and it
Right.
spirals you a bit out of control. Maybe someone gets carded, maybe someone gets sent off, whatever. um yeah, this game had none of the typical dark arts, I guess, which is a little bit strange. And for a New Mexico team that was in at 1-0, I figured like, okay, they're gonna get the halftime talk of like that simply was not acceptable. I was like, the amount of chances we created, there's no way that they come out and do essentially the same thing. And it was like there were maybe more chances for New Mexico in the second half, but it wasn't more threat, I guess, if that makes sense. Like they never threatened to turn the game around. It always felt imbalanced in the sense that it was 2-0 and it's like, even if this goes 2-1, we're going to have plenty of chances to make it 3-1. Right? Like there was just never that threat of, oh, New Mexico are tilting the field back their way. And it just always feels like the gateway to that for New Mexico, for better or worse, is going to be like they're going to drag you into something a little bit more emotional, if they're getting outplayed. And they just didn't really attempt to do that at any point. There was no big challenge. There was no sort of I think there were maybe a couple of handbags, but it was mostly I think the most heated anyone got was Frank DeRomo with the ref Like it wasn't even about anything New Mexico. It was primarily just like Deroma feeling like he was getting kicked too much, so, or that he was getting, fouled too many times. Um,
Yeah.
but but yeah, it wasn't anything particularly feisty, I guess. Which yeah, they sort of whimpered to a 3-0 loss, which was just felt very uncharacteristic, like we've been saying.
Yeah, and this, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest margin of victory in the derby for El Paso Locomotive. So I mean, that
Yeah.
just tells its own story when, like I said, this is a team that has been routinely recording the clean sheets, and um they just didn't show up. And you do make a good point about the second half, and that they seem to try to take the game to us a little bit more. They certainly had way more of the ball, but it never felt like actual threat
Mm-hmm.
or pressure. And even with that, so second half ball possession 71% to New Mexico United, just 29% for us. Yet we still outshot them. 9
Right.
shots to 6 in the second half. They got more on target, which this is why I say, in a game where someone scored a hat trick, it still was a very complete team performance because Jamal Waite did have to pull out some saves,
Mm-hmm.
including he had 2 really good saves on Vargas, who was
Mm-hmm.
really the only one who seemed interested in scoring a goal for New Mexico United.
Yeah.
He had that one that he saved with his feet, um, pretty late
Yeah, real
on.
late on. Yeah.
hmm So Vargas, he tried, but yeah, this no Greg Hurst, no Jabang, like it just, and then the normal veterans were just kind of disappointing in the back. So yeah, just poor for them.
The um the pattern of the goals, like you said, there's a Cabrera's third has a similar vibe to the second one in that it's balls one back high up the field. It's Coronado pressing that time. Uh, he plays a pass to Frank DeRoma, who immediately sort of sees, which I think the impressive part of this one is just the vision of DeRoma. He just immediately sees the gap to play um, Andy into, and he still has quite a bit to do compared, and I think his second and third goals are uh I'll say underrated finishes in the sense that he hits a
Oh
bit of a
yeah.
curler for the second into the side netting. This one is I think we've known maybe a handful of players to score goals like this, but in Locomotive colors, this was a very, like, to me, a very Josue Aron Gomez goal of like the low drive from a wide area.
I just love that he shimmies Kalen right in, and
Yeah.
he gets his angles all wrong.
um, but yeah, he had tried sort of to hit that same side netting with the free kick about 7 or 8 minutes earlier, and then drives the shot into that far corner. The the hat trick itself, I mean, worth mentioning again. I mean, it's been said to death at this point, but first hat trick in club history in a derby, in a 3-0 win, the largest win in a derby. Like, this is a very significant achievement for Andy Cabrera, given the caliber of player that's been at this club. I mean, Lucho Solaniek worked here for 3 years. Diego Luna played here, right? Like, so to register the first hat trick, that is really significant, and for it to come in the derby, I mean, come on, you can't.
Jerome Keysweater, he tried and tried, but he
I know.
simply could only do braces. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, it's kind of wild how long it took, I guess, for someone to do it. Um, but I mean, Andy, I think he's really won people over because, I mean, let's face it. I've even said this on the podcast.
Sure.
When we've watched Wilmer Cabrera build this team, I've said at least it doesn't feel super creative. There's a lot of RGV alum coming through the doors here, players that he knows, and then he brings his son in, and we're like, okay,
Right.
you've coached your son before, good player. Is that the best we can do, right? And I don't think he showed his level because when he came, it was kind of like in a weird spot in the season for him coming from Germany,
Hmm.
and then he had struggled with some injury issues. But now that seems to be resolved, and I think he's really showing what he can do. And right now, I mean, you can't. He's got to be the first name on the team sheet, up there with Amando
Yeah.
Moreno, and he's leading the club with 8 goals, I think, in all competitions. So,
Hmm.
I don't even remember the last time we had someone scoring that many goals, like just them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Since maybe
Amano,
Lucho.
Amano Moreno was our top scorer last season with 6. So
There you go. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's been slim pickings recently for Locomotive. So to have someone have 8 goals in May is kind of crazy. But what I was trying to get at really is that people have, myself included, have looked at this sighting and side-eyed it and been like, "Are you here because your dad coaches the team?" Obviously, that's got something to do with it, right? But Wilmer Cabrera addressed this without anyone even specifically asking, where he said in the Spanish part of his post match press comments something to the effect of, people see Andy in my team and they say, "Oh, he's there because of his dad," but no, he shows it on the pitch, and I really don't think that you can argue with that.
Yeah.
With what he's done this season, and then I asked Andy when he made his comments afterwards. I said, your coach and your father said this. What do you think about that? What do you think about the kind of, forgive the meme, but the nepo baby allegations, right? I didn't say it like that, but I was
Yeah. Yeah.
basically like, what do you think of that? What do you think of that when people say like, or they look at you like, are you here because your dad? Like, would you be here if he wasn't the coach? Is it extra motivation for you? And he said, yeah, basically, yeah, it can be because I just want to show my level. It doesn't matter who the coach is. Obviously, yes, my dad is here, but you know, as we've seen with this selection and with the selection week in week out, there's competition for places. But right now, he's keeping his spot, and I think he has won over folks who were skeptical of the whys and the hows and the does he deserve it of being
Yeah.
signed by Locomotive and by Wilmer Cabrera. So chapeau for the hat trick.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it was incredible performance. And we've said, he's quite a good finisher. So it's
Hmm.
nice to see him be rewarded.
Yeah, and he spoke in in his post match about how the team gets him into good areas, right? Which is when you have someone whose key sort of attribute, which I would say Andy's best attribute is his finishing ability. If he's not getting into the right areas, then what he adds is precious little, right? Like if a good
Like
finisher
in this
is,
reverse fixture.
and I was just gonna say his worst game of the season by far, and maybe his worst game in Locomotive colors was in New Mexico. In this reverse game where he touched the ball like a handful of times, never near the goal, and it was like, what is this dude giving us, right? Like that's sort of the question mark. And I think it's quite clear that they, over the last couple of months since then, they've figured out at least how to get him into the right areas, and he's taking his chances, which is literally all you can ask of a forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just an incredible collection of goals. I think the second one will live long in the mind because he takes the touch, nice curler, and then it gets stuck in the stanchion of the goal. And
Yeah.
Tabakis just throws his arms up like because he's expecting it to bounce out, right? It's like, no, you need to literally go pick that out because it got stuck in the post and the net, which I loved. That just felt like a FIFA glitch of some sort. But
Yeah.
yeah, all the goals were great. The first the header, then the curler, then the rifled shot to send Kalen right into another dimension. So um, yeah, that's how you endear yourself to the fans. Show up for games like this, put on a performance, entertain, and give your all for the badge. And to your point about his kind of comments of the team gets him in good positions, I tend to actually believe players when they say that it is a team kind of effort because one of his comments was, it was me this week, but it'll be somebody else the next, right?
Yeah.
And I do like to hear that from a player because I think we have had maybe question marks over the vibes in this dressing room, but you see the way that the guys celebrate with each other. Um, the like group prayer circle type beat, whatever, as long as we keep getting
Youth
results.
group.
Vacation Bible study vibes. Um yeah, so it just seems like it's a good group of lads.
Yeah.
And credit to Wilmer for creating and fostering that kind of environment where the players can thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think as you mentioned in the second half, the probably the watch out for this group is just the chances they do concede and trying to make sure that we limit the quality chances, because I do think that there's probably in another game, there's a New Mexico goal in this. And I'm not saying they deserved it. I'm not saying that they were ever really in the game, because they weren't. This game easily could have been like 6-0 and it could have been a
Yeah.
romp. And you could also see a universe in which it's, a really nervy, like we're trying to see out a 1-0 lead or something like that, and I think the quality of chances that we concede is still a concern. But overall, like the work that the team did was more than enough to get the result in the derby and give the fans a night of purely good vibes. Like, just there was nothing but good feeling around the club at the end. Like, it was just, I think, to banish some of the demons that have been surrounding, like no better way to do it than at home in the derby, like in a good atmosphere, um and just get people feeling positive, broadly about the club after a tough couple of years.
Yeah, and I do want to say shout out to those that went to the game. It was a really packed house. Over 6,000 people um attended the game. Section 105 was full,
Yeah.
pop and smoke, chanting, young children chanting for Banana Man to consume alcohol at a very high rate. It was just a good time, and it was a really packed house, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was really a great night for the club, and sort of felt like maybe some of the good days are coming back. And especially at home where we've been dire in recent
Yeah.
seasons. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, a wonderful night for the club, a wonderful night for the squad as they go, and obviously a wonderful night for Andy Cabrera, hat trick hero in the derby. Uh, so that sets up a Wednesday night showdown in Central Texas against Austin FC. They'll be going to the Domain. I think that's where um Austin FC's ground is in like an
yeah,
outdoor, it's like near an outdoor mall north of Austin that I used to frequent.
yeah, it's one of those like insane, like the European brain cannot comprehend this kind of developments.
Like it's a walking mall, but also like high end apartments.
Yeah, it's like the villages at Woodcliff Lake type beat,
Yeah,
like whatever type shit. But because it's Austin, it has to be more like bespoke, so they just call it the
exactly.
Domain.
The Domain. And so the ground is like in that, which
Yeah,
is funny. Gorgeous stadium. The Q2 or whatever it is. I don't even know what it's called. But
Q2 Stadium. Yeah,
yeah, Q2. I love just appropriating British shit, like the Q2, right? Like
like the
the
O2, but the
the
Q2.
yeah, the O2, the Q2. So we spoke a little bit about Austin. I can't remember. I think it was the last episode we spoke, sort of looking ahead to this, of like this is on the calendar, because I think we had just beat New Mexico, right? So we were looking ahead to, well, who do we have next? Um, and we talked about how they're kind of like middle of the road. Like, they have not been good since we spoke about them. They have been in pretty rough shape. They have one win in their last five, and they've lost their last two. They've been outscored 10-2 in this stretch of their last six games. Um, stretching back to a win against St. Louis, like at the end of March, I think. So they haven't scored a lot of goals, and Minnesota United absolutely trounced them at home. Their last time out, we talked about Brandon Vasquez was the top scorer with 2 goals, still the top scorer, still just 2 goals. So this is an Austin FC team, like vibe wise, obviously highly talented. They're an MLS side, like naturally, they've got a lot more money in the side than than we do, all of that stuff. But purely off of vibes, Locomotive going in on a high to a game against a team that is like probably a little bit frustrated with how they've been playing recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you look at their last result, Austin FC nil, Minnesota United 3 at the Q2 on Saturday night. Very similar kind of stat line to what we saw at the swap, in that Austin FC had the majority of the possession. In their defense, maybe they created a little bit more and were not rewarded for that. And I think Minnesota United seized on a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, the first goal that they concede is just a howler from the keeper. Like,
That's one of the
really
worst.
bad.
That's one of the worst I've seen. Like,
Yeah.
if
Like,
that
that's just
happened
a
in
routine
USL,
pickup.
yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was really bad. For someone who's purportedly like a fan favorite. So, but yeah, I mean, I think when we learned about the draw and we got Austin FC, I think I said it then, and I'll say it again. There's just a lack of star power in this squad. I mean, I think Vasquez is supposed to be him, but he's nowhere near the levels that he was with Cincinnati a couple seasons ago. And
Yeah,
that's not to say that he won't get there.
sure.
It just, I mean, first of all, I'd be shocked if he started against the Locomotive, but
Yeah,
we'll see. Obviously, maybe they feel they have no choice and they need to make headway somewhere. And they've been accused by their own fans of not taking U.S. Open Cup seriously. And we know how seriously Wilmer Cabrera takes it as a former winner of this competition with another Texas side in Houston Dynamo. So,
yeah.
um, yeah, Austin, I mean, they just seem a little bit goal shy. Speaking of Brandon Vasquez, they've been shut out 5 times by my count on the
Mm-hmm.
season. And to be fair to them, they're not like letting in a whole bunch, but you gotta score goals, right? And
Yeah.
I think in a league like MLS, that's pretty much like, kick and rush, counterattacking, speed, like pace
Mm-hmm.
is really a big deal. Pace and physicality, that's not going to get you very far. And I think they've scored the least goals in the Western Conference, maybe second least in the entire league. So just 7 goals, 4 is just, it's just not good enough.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this could be an opportunity for us. Obviously, the boys are relishing this opportunity. Um, I still, I don't know. It seems like a weird concern, but I think about it often enough that there's got to be something to it. But I just really am fascinated to see how we play on that pitch.
Yeah.
I think that could be their real home field advantage, is like that big pitch that they're used to. Their people, they're at home. I
Yeah.
think that might be what swings it for them, because playing on the compressed pitch that we play on, we've seen it in the past where we've gone to more regulation sized pitches and struggled physically.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that could be a factor. But yeah, I think you would have to say that we are going into this more confident than they are, presumably. So it would be just absolutely astonishing if we can get something here. Um, but that being said, like you said, they do have more resources than us, better facilities, what have you. But maybe once we get on the pitch and all things are equal, maybe we can have, do something special.
Yeah. And it would be, I mean, a shot at the round of 16, starting to get to like the sharp end of the competition. We've seen obviously in recent years USL championship sides make a dent. Sacramento Republic went to the final. And that
Right.
was even before the MLS sides you know, evacuated the competition. So yeah. Um The other thing about watching the highlights back of Austin FC's game against Minnesota United was this second goal in particular, because it's like, of the three goals, you've got like this goalkeeper howler, and then the garbage time goal, which was, there was like a giveaway by a center back, a couple of people have pop shots, and then Pereira scores like an absolute perler, like off the post or whatever. But the second goal is the one that I'm thinking like, okay, this is where Locomotive's like sort of bread and butter is, like, or has been early in the season, and that is, it's a second phase of a set piece, which I'm like, this is where Locomotive can definitely live, especially against like, quote unquote, like superior opposition. Um, they do have the opportunity to flex that set piece muscle, and if there's a chance for something like the back post header that Anthony Markanek scores, which, yes, the brother of Nick Markanek, he scores with a back post header. I'm like, how many times have we seen that this season, of those like floated ball to the back post being nodded home? So
Set piece
anyways,
FC.
yeah, filled me with a little bit of even a little bit more hope, where I'm like, can we just see that? I would like to see it. Um
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because I didn't realize, I knew the other Marcanic was in MLS somewhere, but I didn't know he was at Minnesota United. And I was just like weirdly checking on how Nick was doing at goodness, where is he at? He's at Castellon,
mhm.
in the Villarreal area. Only one goal on the season, I think, but he's not been used very much over in Spain, but still a special player, and obviously his brother is too. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, thinking back to how we've gotten through this competition, I mean, the way that we completely dominated on set piece against Harpo's, obviously this is a way different level than that, but
Mhm.
still, there's a blueprint there that we could potentially follow and plan for that. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, it'll be fascinating to see what happens there.
Yeah, it's a big fixture, arguably one of the biggest for the club, in just facing first division opposition for the first time. And it'll be fascinating to see how it plays out. I know all of what went into the host, and again, it's just one of those where I really wish that Austin had to contend with playing on our tiny little baseball field, um, for
Yeah.
our own purposes. But that being said, uh, I think it's a great occasion for the players, great occasion for the club. Hopefully, they can sort out scheduling for the next round, because I think it's a new round of hosting rights sort of opens up, so you can apply to host again, like in the round of 16. And I do hope the club figures something out, because if, for by some chance, Locomotive do get through, um bringing a game like this to El Paso would be amazing. And I think just giving another spectacle to the fans like that would be wonderful. But you can tell I'm getting greedy. It's like, we win our first couple of Open Cup matches, and I'm already talking about what we're gonna do in the round of 16. So
Man, I wish I understood betting odds because I want to see like what the bookies are saying.
no, that's a fair question. Um,
I'm like, what does minus 200 mean? Oh boy, I don't know. But
I'm trying to. I always. I Yeah. I don't
is
know.
there I was just going to say, is there any other fixtures in this round besides ours that you feel are really fascinating or could lead
That's a
to some
fair.
cup sets?
That's a fair question. Let me take a look. So I don't trust North Carolina. I mean, Charleston is just a very, very good team. So them against DC United is pretty compelling. Um, I believe New York Red Bulls are playing in Colorado. Which
Okay.
is like the great equalizer.
For sure.
um, so,
That's America's Bolivia.
yeah, exactly. Welcome to La Paz. Yeah, that's so. um, and then I mean Pittsburgh's been strong. New York again, and they welcome New York City FC, I think, to Highmark Stadium in Pittsburgh.
I think
Um,
Rhode Island and the Revs is
mhm,
really interesting because New England have not had any other New England to contend with.
right.
And so I think that's really, really cool.
I
And our Island, are they hosting at their new place?
I believe they are.
So
Yeah,
that's lit. Yeah, that's really
yeah,
cool.
that'll be amazing. Just like a great occasion for because they just opened up. They had like almost 11,000 fans, I think, at their
Which
first
is like
ever.
half the fucking population of Rhode Island, bro. Like what?
Right. everybody's everybody's there.
I think El Paso County. I think El Paso County might be bigger than Rhode Island. Like,
Yeah, that wouldn't be shocking. Or yeah. Um.
yeah, it's no, what? No, it's just ever so slightly smaller.
Oh, okay, but like
1,015
close.
square miles, whereas Rhode Island is 1,034. Like it's basically the same. So
That's crazy.
anyway, yeah.
Um, I think Lou City against Minnesota is definitely a big one. Detroit. The only downside, I really wish Detroit City was hosting because um the Fire um are hosting and the Fire are doing what I think should be straight up illegal in the Open Cup and not allowed. They're using their alternate venue.
Ah,
Um
boo.
Now it was the Fire's like actual stadium previously to moving back to Soldier Field, but at the same time, like,
But that's way out in the burbs.
yeah, it's in Bridgeview. It's like pain in the ass to get to. There's going to be, I'll tell you right now, of the there'll probably be more people from Detroit there.
I was
Like,
gonna say, I think those folks will probably travel pretty well. So
it could be nobody. There's not going to be a single. Like, I mean, there'll be some Fire fans, obviously, but it'll be sparsely attended. Um, and then in terms of the biggest, the only sort of big outstanding cup set of the round that could happen. There are two League One teams still involved who are playing MLS opposition. That's three. Chattanooga Red Wolves take on Nashville. I don't have high hopes for Red Wolves. Um, Union Omaha against St. Louis. St. Louis have been pretty poor this year, so I think like Union Omaha always have a chance in the cup. And then I feel like there was one that I was forgetting. Oh, and then AV Alta, who's been pretty exciting out there in California, is taking on FC Dallas. So yeah, still room for I wanted El Farolito to be here, but barring an amateur side still being around, it'd be interesting to see any of the league how the League One sides stack up and if any of them can pull something crazy off.
yeah, I think Union Omaha, that's an interesting one because St. Louis have been poor and they
Yeah,
are missing Roman Berkey with an injury, quite a few injuries actually.
yeah.
So yeah, that could be an opportunity for the Bujos.
Dom and company.
Yes, Dom and company. Yeah, no, it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Tampa Bay against Orlando City, like they just got smacked in another Florida derby, so that one I'm worried for them.
Yeah, Tampa Bay has been off to a tough start this year. Already sacked their manager.
Bruh.
They are at sea. We know what that feels like. So no shade to Tampa because we were that was us last season. So
Damn, I didn't realize they're just above Hartford. That's nasty work. Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Damn. Okay.
yeah. No, it's been
Wow.
brutal. And yeah, the East is already highly stratified. In the West is a little bit more chaotic as per usual, but the East is like there are good teams and there are bad teams.
Yeah, that's why I say West is best, but
Yeah,
that's neither here nor
and
there.
yeah, and weirdly enough, Loudoun is one of the good teams. I don't know if that's gonna hold, but Loudoun is top of the East right now. So
Wow,
strange days.
very weird indeed.
Well, that brings us to the end. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed the episode. I know we both enjoyed the derby very much and enjoyed chatting about it. We'll be back to talk about whatever goes down in the Open Cup, and then potentially Tulsa. If something crazy happens in the Open Cup, I'm sure we'll record.
I will be over the Atlantic Ocean when
that's
this
right.
game kicks off, so I
That's
will
right.
try to get like Wi-Fi on the internet.
Hmm.
Unless someone reports me for watching vulgar content in my seat. But
she's watching Locomotive in international waters.
The mannequin pointing to the other mannequin.
That's right. You're headed to
España.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a little jaunt over there. Little break. Gonna see Real Betis host Osasuna in their bid for the Champions League.
That's amazing.
We will see. We need Villarreal to drop
Go
some points.
Go watch the GOAT. Go see the GOAT in person.
In person. Live and in person.
That's Anthony for anyone. Keep it. Yes, that Anthony from who floundered at Manchester United. He is just absolutely ripping up La Liga right now for Real Betis. Unironically, like we are not. I'm not joking.
Like he scored an absolute belter against Espanyol on Sunday. Go check that out if you have it. It's just objectively a beautiful goal.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how things change in football, right? Like Locomotive like down in the doldrums to like smacking New Mexico United, Anthony like £100 million flop to like now Atletico Madrid want to buy up. Like it's crazy. So yeah, the sport, man, keeps you on your toes.
It sure does. And me and Christian will probably be back if something crazy happens in the Open Cup.
Maybe I'll do like a cheeky voice note, like here are my reactions from my hotel room.
Yeah, absolutely,
something like that.
And then we'll be chatting Tulsa. We'll probably, I don't know. I won't be able to swing a watch along for the Open Cup, unfortunately. But I think for Saturday in Tulsa, I should probably be able to. So keep an eye out for that as well. And yeah, check us out on your favorite podcast platform if you haven't already. And until next time, stay loco.